Hello guys, welcome to the current affairs discussion where I'll be discussing all of the important aspects that are necessary for UPSC. And today I'll be discussing the Hindu newspaper, that is March 26th, right? And let us see what are the important aspects. Before going on to the important aspects, I would like to discuss a little on Iran dismisses US bid to end conflict, sets its own terms. Basically, USA said that Trump has actually given some of the statements that they have been talking, and Iran has actually agreed to back down, or Iran has actually agreed to calm down all of the things or the war that has been ongoing. But then again, Iran said, I don't think we've ever discussed that, and the claims made by Donald Trump are wrong, right? And that way, Iran said that we would agree to back down, but then again, there are certain conditions for us, and if you meet those conditions, then we might think of backing down in the war. That is what the Iran said. And what are those what do you call conditions that Iran has put in? One is that a complete halt of aggression and assassination, right? One, it's not like killing people directly from through airstrikes and all. Concrete mechanisms to prevent future attacks, payment of war damages and reparations, yeah, and end to fighting on all fronts, right? Not only just based on nuclear war, or not only based on nuclear proliferation, or based on Israel's anti anti-Jewish ideology, and also recognition of its exercise of sovereignty over the Strait of Hormuz, which it calls its natural and legal right. Iran says that the exercise over sovereignty or over the Strait of Hormuz is its natural and legal right only if the USA agrees for all of these conditions, then Iran might actually agree to back down. I think that is completely, not saying, but completely delusion, I think, right? What are the in this aspect, I would like to discuss some things that are relevant to prelims. That is Strait of Hormuz, right? Strait of Hormuz includes Persian Gulf, and Gulf of Oman. And the reason I think Iran is saying that it is its natural and legal right is because of the major presence in Persian Gulf. So the countries bordering Persian Gulf are IQ, Books I, Iraq, Qatar, Bahrain, UAE, Kuwait, Saudi, and Iran. All of these are bordering countries for Persian Gulf, and out of all of these bordering countries, Iran has the highest amount of share in Persian Gulf, right? And I'll also discuss some about Red Sea, right? Red Sea plus Gulf of Aden is nothing but Bab el Mandeb Strait. Bab el Mandeb Strait is nothing but Red Sea plus Gulf of Aden, and the countries that are bordering Red Sea is yes, Yemen, Eritrea, Somalia, Djibouti, Egypt, and Saudi. All of these are bordering the Red Sea, and I wanted to give you all of this information because they are important for prelims, as there has been a lot of tension that has been going on in these areas, Red Sea and the Persian Gulf, that is the Strait of Hormuz. That is the reason I wanted to inform all of this content in this particular article, right? And yeah, I think that those particular conditions are not valid in nature. I think Iran has to think something new to come up with and to ensure some aspects are being reduced. Okay. Moving on to the next article, it is India raises clean energy ambition with 60% non-fossil fuel power goal by 2035. Meaning, it's saying that the nationally determined contributions under the Paris Agreement there are three contributions that India has actually done. One is increasing carbon sink from 2.5 to 3 billion tons, right? One, and then reducing the carbon intensity to 45% of 2005 levels by 2030. And lastly, and the third part is, I'll explain it here. All right. So the nationally determined contributions that are given by India, there are three nationally determined contributions. One is carbon sink of 2.5 to 3 billion tons. The next is reducing the carbon emission intensity by 45% of 2005 levels by 2030. And also ensuring that the 50% renewable energy is met for the demand, right? These are the three aspects of nationally determined contributions. Now, the India has changed its goal from these three to, and it extended it. So basically, before it was 50% of installed electricity capacity from non-fossil fuel energy. Now it has turned into 60%. This has changed into 60%, right? 60% by 2035. And the intensity has changed from 45% to 47% by 2035. And lastly, the 2.5 to 3 billion changed to 3 to 4 billion tons of carbon sink by 2035. These are all the aspects that led to the change when it comes to India's nationally determined contribution goals. Apart from this, I would also mention something about the Panchamrit goals. Panchamrit goals are 5 goals. Yeah, Panchamrit goals. One is the net zero by 2070. Right. Then 500 gigawatt. Renewable energy installed capacity. Right. Then again, adding all of the three nationally determined contributions, not three, but only two. One is the 45% reduction of intensity by 2030 of 2005 levels, and meeting the energy demand by 50% from renewable energy capacity, and also reducing the carbon emissions by 1 billion ton. All of these are the Panchamrit goals. These are important for prelims and also for mains. You can use them both in GS3. You can use it in GS3 under environment, right? You can use both the Panchamrit goals and also the nationally determined contributions under the Paris Agreement in the GS3 paper under the environment. These are the two aspects that are important in this particular article, right? Moving on. Transgender person amendment bill, a flawed fix. This is the next editorial that we'll be discussing. Basically, this editorial is talking about the new transgender amendment bill that has been brought in, and it compares the previous transgender amendment bill and checks what are the importance or what are the benefits that the transgender people are getting through this particular amendment. Firstly, the amendment says that the definition has changed. Previously, in 2019, when the amendment in the 2019 when the amendment bill came, right, the definition was very broad. Any person could be included, be it the transgender person, transgender or intersex person, right, or gender fluidity. All of these were included in the broader definition, but in the 2026 amendment, they changed the definition and narrowed the definition to some blocks where they included transgender people and the traditional cultural identities such as Skinner and Hijra, and they excluded gender fluidity. I know some people get a lot of confused based on what gender is, what sex is, and what sexual orientation is. I'll give you a brief on what these three are. Sex is nothing but biological, right? Sex is something that is biological. Any biological feature or physical feature is known as sex, right? Gender is how you feel, right? Gender is nothing but, for example, a man can feel like a woman, so that is called gender, right? It is based on norms, societal norms, feminism or manism, right? Masculinity or femininity, all of these aspects come under gender, right? Then there is sexual orientation. Sexual orientation is nothing but the attraction to the other gender. It depends on which gender you are attracted to. That's called sexual orientation. So these are the three aspects that you need to keep in mind. And when it comes to gender fluidity means where the person's gender keeps on changing based on time. For example, that person could feel masculine at one point of time and feminine at another point of time and nothing at another point of time. This is called the gender fluidity. And when it comes to intersex is nothing but intersex is a biological disorder maybe where they are born in that way, right? That is called intersex. Whereas transgender is something where they grow up and they willingly change their physical features or they transform into gender that they would like. Like, for example, if the person is feeling more feminine, they would change their physical features into a feminine feature. Similarly, if a feminine person has different masculine gender orientation, then that person will change their physical features into the masculinity. So this is called transgender. Okay, these are all the aspects that are present in the first definition. So the first thing is, in 2019 the definition was actually broad, but then again in 2026 the definition was narrowed by bringing on people like gender fluidity or what do you call the other aspects. The other aspects have been brought down and they have been narrowed, right? Second important aspect is self-identification, meaning that in 2019 the process of identification was self. Any person who identified as a transgender or an intersex person or a generally fluid person was based on self-identity, and the district magistrate would give them a certificate, and that is how the process would end. Okay, but then again in 2026 the self-identification aspect has been removed, meaning that any person who declares that they are of particular community cannot self-identify. Rather, they need a medical certificate from the chief medical officer. Right? These are all the aspects that have been brought into the 2026 amendment bill, where a person cannot self-identify themselves anymore. They need permission from the chief medical officer to ensure that they are not faking anything. Third important aspect is certification. Previously, the certification would happen in such a way where the district magistrate would issue a certificate to the person and they would identify themselves as intersex or transgender or a genderly fluid person. But then again, in the current times, through the 2026 amendment, the certification has changed completely, where they need certificates from the hospital, and then again also the permissions from the chief medical officer, not permissions, rather the written agreement or written consent, not written consent, rather a written letter from the CMO that this person has undergone some surgeries and some history of surgeries that have happened. History of surgeries that have happened. All of these are included, and when all of the information from these three aspects is included, that is when the certification actually starts. Okay, this is the other aspect. And lastly, previously the intersex people and transgender people were categorized differently. Right, there are two different categories. As I explained just now, intersex is something that you're born with, right? Intersex is where a person is born with multiple sexual identities, right, on or organs. And transgender is nothing but where you change your gender based on your adult preferences, where you become an adult and then you change your orientation based on that. So the 2026 amendment did not give any differentiation between these two. It actually combined these two and brought it under the same umbrella. That would actually complicate things for all of the people who are either intersex or transgender, right? That is the other aspect that is part of this editorial or the amendment. And lastly, the protection. When it comes to protection, previously in the 2019, it was mainly focused on charity and non-discrimination. These are the two aspects on which the 2019 bill focused on. But the 2026 bill focuses more on strict punishment, right? Any person who has been forced, any transgender person or any person of that community, if they're forced for begging or any other services, then they would be penalized for 5 to 14 years. I think this is one of the better features of this particular amendment, as it ensures protection of the particular community. So yeah, this is the last aspect of the particular bill. And other than that, there is nothing that much important in the bill. These are the other aspects that are these are tenets of the bill and which are important. Okay, so yeah, just remember these, and I guess you can use all of this information in GS1 when it comes to society and social issues in GS2. You can use these two, where transgender people are given certain rights and how they are ensured equality in the society. This is how you can use it in the UPSC means, right? Other than that, you have this article, an energy transition driven by ethics. Basically, the energy transition driven by ethics is talking about how the fossil fuel dependency is changing India's national sovereignty and India's national security, right? Basically, the author says that fossil fuel dependence is ripping away national security and sovereignty and replacing it with subservience and rising cost. Basically, it is saying that as the fossil fuel dependence is increasing, a country is losing its national sovereignty and also national security, and ensuring that they are overly dependent on the fossil fuel and also inflation. These claims have been brought in through the ongoing war, where it shows that India is dependent on crude oil or the oil requirements from the West Asia, right? India imports nearly 60% of its oil needs from West Asia, and whenever a tension is arising in the West Asia, who is affected directly? India. That is what the author is saying. Whenever there's a global tension or a tension in the West Asia, India's oil needs are being affected, due to which there is a supply chain disruption, and subsequently there is a scarcity in India. What will happen when there's scarcity? People will obviously panic, just like how people are panicking now. There was LPG scarcity, right? Liquefied petroleum gas scarcity recently. Then again, the petroleum scarcity that people are assuming that is ongoing. While the government or the police officers or any organization that is present is telling that there is no scarcity, people are still adamant and they are still listening to all of the social media posts, right? That is the power of social media. It influences people very much, despite the whole government or the organizations repeatedly saying there's no issue, right? So that is how people are directly affected, and when there is scarcity, there is more panic in the country. Is what is saying, right? But then again, the author says that while the oil dependence ensures that there is scarcity and there is over dependence on the imports, the author says that renewable energy is a good thing. Renewable energy is obviously a good thing because whenever there's renewable energy, you're not depending on anyone, right? But that is what the trick is. You think that you are not dependent, but there's an issue. The author says that there are hidden drawbacks of renewable energy. Renewable energy is nothing but something energy that can be renewed, right? It can be solar, it can be wind, it can be tidal energy, it can be any energy, right? Ground thermal energy, ocean thermal energy, all of these are renewable energies which can be renewed. Okay, all of these need only one-time investment, and also just maintenance costs. All of these are required for renewable energy. But the author says that there is hidden drawbacks for renewable energy, and that drawback is nothing but mineral dependence. In order to make the equipments that are necessary for the renewable energy, for example, such as solar panels or the windmills, all of these are required. And when we are making all of these, you need minerals for making these, and these minerals are these mainly include lithium, cobalt, right? Rare earth elements. All of these are very important minerals that are required for renewable energy. The author says that while we think that for moving away from fossil fuel energy to renewable energy reduces the dependence on West Asia, but then again it focuses or it redirects the dependence on other aspects from fossil fuel dependence to mineral dependence. That is what it's saying. It's saying that the author is saying that whenever you are focusing from fossil dependence and whenever you're trying to transition from fossil dependence to renewable energy, you're just shifting the dependence from oil to minerals. And the author shows the dependence, how the dependence changes by the amount of control by other countries. The author says that the amount of cobalt is controlled by Democratic Republic of Congo, Australia, and Chile. These three countries control the production of cobalt in India, I mean in the world. And when it comes to China, China controls 60% of cobalt, 60% of lithium, 70% of cobalt, and 90% of rare earth elements. Right? It says that the author says that the amount of minerals that are present around the world is so much, and whenever you are shifting from fossil fuels to minerals, our dependence will increase from West Asia. Our dependence from West Asia will shift to these countries: Democratic Republic Congo, Australia, Chile, and China. What happens when the dependence shifts from those countries to these countries? It is clearly evident that they can easily try to control us through all of these imports or exports, right? So the author is saying, while we think that changing from oil to renewable energy is good, at the end of the day, it is also a trade-off and not just some particular benefit. That is what the author is saying. And the author is also saying that it should be driven by ethics, meaning that whenever we are transitioning from fossil fuels to renewable energy, it should not be based on fear. Right? The author is saying that when we are shifting from fossil fuel dependence to renewable energy, it should not be based on fear like West Asia sanctions or USA sanctions on Russia's oil. These should not be the factors that should help us transition from fossil fuel to renewable energy. Rather, it should be the environmental protection. We need to understand that we need to consider the environmental ethics aspect, right? Because whenever we are using fossil fuels, we are emitting a lot of chemicals into the atmosphere. When we are emitting a lot of chemicals into the atmosphere, it is hurting the environment. This is the ideology that the author says. The author says that this is the ideology that you need to have when you're transitioning from fossil fuels to environmental energy. Yeah, that is the article. And you can use this article in GS3, and also international relations in GS2. These are the two aspects in which you can use the particular editorial or the information present in the editorial. Yeah, those are all the information that is present in today's newspaper. Other than that, I don't think there's anything that important, right? Thank you guys. We'll meet you guys again tomorrow. Right.